America, the land of opportunity, right? Think about this. The best and greatest country in the world, the best country that ever existed, liberty, freedom, prosperity, on and on and on. But look at you. It's the land of milk and honey, but everyone is always trying to find a side hustle. Everyone is endlessly talking about being on their grind. You know, motivational speakers are a billion-dollar industry. Life coaches, self-help books. Social media is full of inspirational quotes, so-called, on and on, for supposedly people who are living in the best country in the world. While you look like, to everyone else, you look like you're constantly on the verge of a nervous breakdown. You look like you're barely holding it together. Like you need someone to pump you up just to help you get out of bed in the morning. How great can it really be?
Now, I've always brought you videos here about how Shahid Bolsen is exposing the dysfunctionality in American society, especially American and Western nations. And this is what he's continuing to do even in the video that I'm going to post today. He's talking about how the system has betrayed Americans themselves and that it has really worked against them instead of working to support them and even make them feel better in the society. I don't want to speak much before you listen to what Shahid Bolsen has to say, because this is a really thought-provoking speech and lecture that he has given. Let's watch this, then come back and share our thoughts together.
Okay, I mean, let's do an evaluation of reality, just for a second, you know? Let's look at the situation in America objectively. Maybe some of the elements that are usually overlooked in America, or that are only overlooked in isolation. But let's look at it as a whole. Let's look at it as an organic whole. First of all, roughly half of all of the current working age population in America today, the adult population, between 40 to 50% of the adults who are in America today, who are, you know, in the leading positions in America, whether it's in business or in government or what have you, about half of the adult population in America grew up with divorced parents, means single mothers mostly. Okay, well, we're all aware of the emotional and the developmental issues that can affect kids when they're growing up in broken homes, homes without fathers, and so on. There is trauma from that, no doubt. No matter how great that mother is, no matter how great that father may be, a child without two parents who are actively involved in bringing that child up, that child has a much harder time than a child who has both parents. That's a statistical fact. Okay, so half of your adults grew up like that. They were impacted by that. Then if you look at the statistics of abuse and neglect that was reported throughout the 1980s and 1990s, somewhere between 25% and 40% of all American adults today suffered abuse while they were growing up. Physical abuse, sexual abuse, neglect, emotional neglect, and so on. Do you understand? So you have that trauma as well in your adult population and all of the associated psychological aftermath of that they're dealing with, that they're coping with. At least 10% of American adults today grew up in poverty and economic hardship when they were children. And now in adulthood, 25% of adult American women have been victims of rape or attempted rape. And half of all American women have experienced some form of sexual violence. A quarter of all men, American men, have suffered some form of sexual violence in the United States. Now, if you look at the other crime statistics of the past, say 4 decades, then that would leave you with 20% of all Americans who know someone who's been murdered. It's a brutal society. The people have grown up with severe and abnormal conditions in that country, all of which are deteriorative to their mental health. And now think about the fact that an adult in America today, say someone who was born in 1990, if they were born in 1990, they're 35 years old now, they likely spent 50,000 hours watching television, 40,000 hours surfing the internet, and up to 20,000 hours playing video games. That's 110,000 hours of passive media consumption, 35% of their entire life. That's more time than they probably spent working or studying or even sleeping. It's equivalent to spending every waking moment of an entire decade glued to a screen. I mean, in fact, if you want to be accurate about it, we should just subtract the time that they probably slept. You know, only count their waking hours. In that case, the average 35-year-old American has literally spent more than half of their life watching television, surfing the internet, or playing video games. Passive consumption of media, roughly 55% of their lives. I mean, no wonder whenever anything even mildly interesting happens in their life, they'll say, wow, it was just like a movie, without fail, you know? Because media is literally their frame of reference. Media, popular media, not actual experience. Now combine that with the real trauma issues that they have from growing up and from the violence and the insecurity of their society where they live. They're not processing any of that. They're not processing anything that they've been through. Instead, there's just escapism, avoidance, isolation, desensitization, you know, and this, you know, escape into false versions of reality, simplified versions of reality, and so on. The Instagram world, the virtual universe of the internet becomes their unnatural, natural habitat. The average 35-year-old American male has spent roughly 3,000 hours watching pornography. That's equivalent to about 5 months of continuous nonstop viewing. Okay, obviously all of this combined has devastating cognitive impact. Attention spans evaporate. There's a sort of a constant state of partial attention where people are continuously distracted. They're kind of paying attention and kind of not. It erodes their critical thinking skills, their problem solving skills. It deteriorates both their working memory and their long-term memory. It erodes their emotional regulation. It causes anxiety. It causes depression. It causes volatility. It impairs their social skills, their communication skills, their empathy, their ability to even interact with people face to face properly. You know, it programs you with a kind of behavioral addiction, low impulse control, on and on. Not to mention information overload, where you're accessing far more information than you could ever process. And all this just ends up making your whole perspective of the world an incoherent jumble of random bits of data, random theories and opinions, and so on. And again, remember, all of this cognitive damage is being inflicted on people who most likely are already carrying real life trauma that has never been dealt with from their childhood and from growing up. And okay, if you can afford it, you can go to therapy. Everybody's going to a therapist, right? Well, over 60% of therapists themselves report that they themselves have psychological and emotional disorders. Because of course they do. They come from the same society. You know, they try to rationalize that by calling themselves wounded healers. But very often they wound more than they heal. Because there's a very significant number of therapy patients who report abuse of one form or another from their therapists. I mean, ideally, you'd be able to talk to your family. That's what normal people would do. But we've already said that a lot of them, at least 40-50% of them, come from broken homes. And about 30% of all American adults report that they are estranged from their families, from their parents, or from their siblings. The average close friendship in America doesn't last more than 5 years. Forget about romantic relationships, dating relationships, that barely makes it to 2 years. Usually it's only a few months. Even most marriages don't last a decade in the United States. You're people who are adrift. It's a society that's adrift. There's no anchor, there's no port, there's no dock, there's no rudder, there's no map, and there's no destination. That's your society. I mean, look, America, the land of opportunity, right? Think about this. The best and greatest country in the world, the best country that ever existed, liberty, freedom, prosperity, on and on and on. But look at you. It's the land of milk and honey, but everyone is always trying to find a side hustle. Everyone is endlessly talking about being on their grind. You know, motivational speakers are a billion-dollar industry. Life coaches, self-help books. Social media is full of inspirational quotes, so-called, on and on, for supposedly people who are living in the best country in the world. While you look like, to everyone else, you look like you're constantly on the verge of a nervous breakdown. You look like you're barely holding it together. Like you need someone to pump you up just to help you get out of bed in the morning. How great can it really be? You flood social media with that stuff. All that you can do it, you know, the you can do it affirmations, all the you will survive this posts. You're beautiful, you're important, you're special, you're a champion. All of that. You flood social media with that. You flood social media with those things. And everyone in the world sees it. You understand? Everyone in the world sees that. And it looks to them like America is staring in the bathroom mirror trying to pull themselves together to face the day. That's what it looks like. You see what I mean? It looks very sad. to people outside. You know, people in countries that don't proclaim to be the greatest and most wonderful nation on earth, well, they don't have to hype themselves up just to do normal things. They don't have to hype themselves up just to function in the world. People in Africa, Asia, the Middle East, Latin America, so-called, they don't need motivational speakers. They don't need life coaches. They don't need inspirational Instagram quotes just to be able to stop crying in the office parking lot and go to work. Honestly, it always looks like it's a toss-up with you, whether you're going to post an inspirational, motivational quote on social media or jump off the roof. You know, to the rest of the world, your society looks like a wreck, looks like an emotional wreck. But you see, that's because the rest of the world did not spend a third of their life glued to a screen. The average person in the global south has spent a fraction of the time that Americans have spent consuming media. They also have better relationships with their families. They have better friendships. They have better support networks. You know, they have better ways of coping with trauma. They have better ways of coping with difficulty and so on, even though they're not fortunate enough to live in the best country in the world. You know, Bolivia's bathroom isn't framed with, you know, sticky notes telling it what a winner it is and how it's going to crush it today. Indonesia isn't driving to work listening to Tony Robbins on their headphones. Do you know the awkward, embarrassed silence you would get in Mauritania if you tried to give a confidence-boosting pep talk to a bunch of students? I mean, the only people in the global south, the only people in the Muslim world that this would resonate with at all are the people in those countries who are westernized. Isn't that funny? The more westernized you become, the more Americanized you become, the more you need constant affirmations and constant confidence boosting. Because westernization is alienation from normal human approaches to life, even for Westerners. And see, I'm saying all of this to say, this is why I say that all they do is lie. All they can do is lie, without even meaning to lie. They can't be truthful because they are estranged from the truth. They're estranged from reality. They're estranged from the real world. Their cognitive health is damaged. Their cognitive functions, you know, their thinking skills, their concept of reality. And there's always this smoldering, simmering, mental, psychological, and emotional illness that they're constantly trying to suppress and deny. They're barely holding themselves together, wallahi. Like I said, you flood social media with all your insecurity. You flood social media with all your inadequacy, your low self-esteem continuously. All the, you know, forced displays of bliss, all the beauty filters, all the endless cliched personal development advice. Everyone knows that you're not trying to inspire anyone but yourself. Because your life is so vacuous, your life is so purposeless, your life is so mundane compared to the fake version of life that you spent 100,000 hours absorbing since childhood. And you can't bear to compare the reality of your life with that false version of reality. So you barely are able to even walk out the door without medicating yourself in the morning, medicating yourself either with alcohol or narcotics or prescription drugs, or medicating yourself with social media likes for some vapid quote about living your best life. I mean, think about it. Your society came up with this thing. You tell people, fake it until you make it. Fake it. Fake being capable. Fake being qualified. Fake being successful. Fake being happy. You know, fake being beautiful with your beauty filters. Fake being fit. Fake being healthy. Fake being motivated. Fake being strong. Fake being wise. Fake being smart. Fake being informed. This is what you teach your people. This is what you teach your society. Why? Is it because you used to teach them that if you work hard, you can make it, and everyone found out that that was a lie? So now you tell them that the key to success is to be fake? What kind of culture is this? And again, understand that you're broadcasting this pathology all across the internet to the whole world. The whole world sees it. And now everyone knows that you're faking. Everyone knows that you're frauds. See, I'm telling you, it's impossible to get anything even like the truth from these people, because they themselves are cut off from the truth. It's not their fault. It's not necessarily because they are deliberately lying. They're deliberately dishonest. No, but they are no more capable of telling the truth than I'm capable of speaking Swahili. They can't make any sense even if they want to. The society has paralyzed them. They've been victimized. They've been traumatized. And then they were propagandized. They've been militarized, desensitized, dehumanized, and monetized. And yes, they've been neutralized, and that's a whole lot of lies. You know? So if you're American, I mean, if you're Western generally, but especially if you're American, if you were raised in America, and you went through that 110,000 hours of programming, then you have to understand that in order for you to even start learning about reality, if to even start learning, you have to understand you're not even starting at zero. You're in a hole. You're at less than zero. Because it isn't just that you're ignorant about the world, you have been miseducated about the world. So you have to actually unlearn all of that miseducation. You know, all of those tens of thousands of hours of programming, hundreds of thousands, in fact, because that includes not just your media consumption, but it also includes your schooling, your so-called education too. So you have to unlearn all of that indoctrination. You have to unlearn all of that programming just to get you out of that hole, just to get you up to zero. You understand? So that then maybe you can actually start to learn about the world that you live in. You have to get to zero first. But not only have they got you in a hole, they've got you to where you don't even know how to climb out of the hole. You don't even have those skills, the climbing skills, because they taught you the most dysfunctional approach to knowledge and the most dysfunctional approach to the processing of information imaginable. You know, it's an approach that basically prevents any sort of understanding. And I think it's calculated. See, this is where you have to understand that there's layers of gaslighting that they do. The complexity of their tactics to mislead you. It's not that straightforward. It's not just that, you know, the gaslighting for them isn't just that they want to make you believe that you're not seeing what you think you're seeing. You know, it's not just trying to tell you that something is other than what it is, and what you can tell it is, what you see it is. That's amateur level, you know, telling you it's day when it's actually night. No, they go deeper than that. They'll actually have you doubting your own reasoning. They'll make you doubt not only what you're seeing, but they'll make you doubt the whole mental process that takes place in your mind that explains to you what you're seeing. They're throwing a monkey wrench in the whole machinery of your common sense. Like if it's night, okay, if it's night and they tell you that it's day, then they'll tell you, well, the sun is actually there. It didn't go away. Technically, the sun's light is still shining on the earth after all. So what does night really even mean, actually? You know, night means the absence of the sun, right? And the sun is never actually absent. So really, there's no such thing as night, actually, if you think about it. See what I mean? This is what they do. This is how they play with words. This is how they manipulate and how they abuse normal logical sense, just so that they can make everything nonsensical. Because when everything is nonsense, then nothing means anything. There is no right or wrong. Nothing has a definition. Nothing has any meaning. Everything is arbitrary. Everything is subjective. Everything is meaningless. And that's how they want it. That's how they want you to operate in the world. I'm telling you, it's intellectual sadism. They're torturing your mind. And they've done it to you your whole life. And then at the end of that, even intelligence and even sense don't have any meaning or value, which means that anyone and everyone's opinion has equal validity and equal value, which is the same thing as devaluing knowledge, devaluing truth. Please understand me. And that's free speech, so-called. You know, free speech, the way they do it, is just a way to completely drown out reasonable, intelligent, informed, and knowledgeable voices. That's why they support free speech, because the truth is, if you want to learn, the only way to learn is to listen, is to shut your own mouth and listen. There's no other way to do it. Nobody learns by talking. Your own voice never taught you anything. You know, they say talk is cheap. Well, in America, it's free, and they made it free for a reason. And the reason is because they want the noise. They want the noise. They've worked it out so that you can actually censor people even more effectively by letting everyone talk. Now they don't have to silence anyone anymore. They don't have to silence anyone. All you have to do is increase the volume on everyone so that then the voices that you should be listening to can't be heard. Oh, it's brilliant. It's as brilliant as it is diabolical. Now that's the way they can make sure that you never get out of the hole. You see how it works? So my message first is for the Muslims. for the Muslims, for our ummah, and for the people in the global south more broadly. The decolonization of your intellect requires that you recognize that non-Muslim Westerners, that Americans, are literally incapable of telling the truth. Even if they want to, they can't do it. You're dealing with the people who are afflicted with debilitating cognitive damage, debilitating emotional disorders, crippling psychological and mental confusion and dysfunction. They'll treat a yes or no question like it's a multiple choice. They'll treat it like it's an essay question. No, you need to push all of that aside. You need to push all of that off the table. You need to hit the mute button on all of that. And as for Westerners, as for Americans, I'm telling you that you need to recognize what your society has done to you. You need to recognize that no society that cares about you would ever do that to you. And you need to realize that your society requires you to pump yourself up, hype yourself up, intravenously inject a constant flow of affirmations and motivations and constant pressure to fight and to struggle and to hustle and to compete and fake it until you make it. Well, that's not a society that wants you to succeed. That's a society that does not facilitate your success. It's a society that makes success unattainable. And then they try to make you feel like it's your fault that you're not a billionaire. They want you to feel like it's your fault and that you're a failure because their system is rigged. They want you to think that it's all your fault that 10% of that population controls 70% of the wealth, and make you think it's your fault that you didn't try hard enough to get into that 10%, as if the 90% of the population are the blameworthy ones and not the inhumanly greedy 10%. And you need to realize that your society has wronged you. They've wronged you very badly. You need to realize that you're not safe, you're not healthy, you're not informed, and you're not happy. And they have deprived you of even the ability to ever become any of those things. All you can do, all you are allowed to do, and all that is actually required of you to do is to fake it. No matter how bad it is, no matter how bad it gets, you're expected to just slap on a big white tooth smiling filter and pretend. They want you to perform America. That's your obligation. Forget about your own happiness. You have to perform America for the world. Never mind that that whole audience is mortified by this performance, and they've already left the building.
Wow, what a speech by Shahid Bolsen. I think he keeps crushing it every day. He gives some of the most powerful speeches that, if you take your time to listen to, will really reveal a lot to you. For me, he has really given me a lot to think about. For example, talking about how the American system has destroyed the society and bonds between people has been broken because they have spent much of their time consuming media. They don't have personal relationships with each other. He says that Americans, they're the people who have tons and tons of motivational speakers. And motivational speaking is a $1 billion industry where these people are always pumping them up, assuring them of their ability to do things that they are doing. And he asks one question that I think all of us must ask. If America is the land of milk and honey, it's the land of opportunity and land of the greatest, why is it that everybody is working and talking about side hustles? He says that it doesn't really mirror the picture that everybody is seeing. And he says again that when you look at other countries in the global south, if there are any group of people who tend to be westernized more, they are the people who have those kind of challenges. And he says that doing just a normal thing for an American becomes very difficult, that sometimes they have to really gas themselves up and really use motivational quotes to really prop themselves up. But one thing that is really sad for me that is talked about, the rate at which broken families has affected human beings in America. People don't really value the relationship that they have. And I think it is not out of personal choice, but it's out of how the society has been manufactured and created. You find that relationships don't last any long. Friendships, he says, don't last even longer than 5 years. And even marriages are the same. So why is it that America is experiencing these things? I think we as a people must really learn from what Shahid Bolsen is saying. And for people living in the global south, we must unwesternize ourselves, because if we continue getting westernized, as he has said, we will need a lot to help ourselves. People living in Africa, for example, just somebody in the farm, in the rural areas, is not worried about a lot of things. But if you are given information overload, as he has said, you are going to worry about things that you should not even worry about. So Shahid Bolsen, a notable Muslim public intellectual, has discussed the profound psychological impacts of trauma on American society, particularly highlighting how widespread trauma shapes collective behavior and societal structures. According to contemporary research and insights from Bolsen's commentary, several key traumas significantly affect American adults. One is collective trauma from global events. Events like the COVID-19 pandemic, global conflicts, and climate-related disasters have contributed to a state of collective trauma, as noted in the Stress in America 2023 survey by the American Psychological Association. These events have left a lasting psychological imprint, fostering a sense of insecurity and heightened stress levels. Racism and racial injustices. The ongoing issues of racism and racial injustice have caused deep-seated trauma among minority groups, impacting mental health and fostering a continuous state of hypervigilance and mistrust, which Bolsen often critique in the context of social justice and decolonization of the mind. Economic and social inequality. The economic divide and struggle with consumerism, as Bolsen has critiqued, contribute to a sense of personal and societal failures, leading to chronic stress and mental health issues like anxiety and depression. Childhood adverse experiences. A significant number of adults carry forward the effects of childhood trauma, which include psychological, emotional abuse, neglect, or witnessing violence, impacting their ability to form healthy relationships and engage society effectively. Bolsen argues that these traumas have led to a society where consumerism is used as an escape mechanism. Political polarization is heightened due to fear of mistrust, and there's a pervasive sense of isolation despite being more connected than ever. This trauma influenced behaviors, community interactions, and policy making, often prioritizing short-term relief over long-term healing or systemic change. The societal impact is a culture struggling with the mental health, where resilience is tested and collective healing is paramount for societal progress. So I think that summarizes the idea that Shahid Bolsen has tried to put around. And he's spoken quite candidly and openly about the American society. I know this video is going to reach people from different parts of the world. And if you're an American or a European, does what Shahid Bolsen say ever make sense to you? Has he really exposed what is really ailing the American or the European society? Tell me down in the comment section what you think. And if you're watching us for the first time, please don't forget to subscribe to our channel, like this video, and also share.